I wanted to share a true, creepy story that happened to me 6 years ago when I was 11 years old in 7th grade. I'm currently 17 years old and recently graduated from school, but this experience still haunts me to this day. It all started when I used to go to my aunt's house every weekend for my studies. I wasn't very strong academically, so she tutored me. I stayed at her place for 2 full days, Saturday and Sunday. My dad would drop me off every Friday evening and pick me up on Sunday evening since I had school on Monday. It became a weekly routine. My aunt lived on the first floor of an apartment building. Even back then, I always felt something was off. I don't know if it was just me being a kid, but every time I visited her house, it gave me a weird, spooky feeling. It always felt unnaturally silent. I clearly remember that the apartment directly above hers used to be occupied by an old couple who had sadly passed away. After their death, no one lived there for nearly 3 to 4 years. But while staying at my aunt's house, I often heard noises coming from that empty apartment above. At night, especially while trying to sleep, I would hear scratching sounds, like someone dragging furniture or moving heavy objects. It didn't sound like rats or normal house noises. Soon, I started experiencing what I later learned was sleep paralysis. At the time, I didn't know what it was. Even though I slept next to my aunt, I would stay awake most of the night, too scared to fall asleep. I felt like the moment I closed my eyes, something would happen. Sometimes I would wake up around 3 or 4 a.m., completely alert and filled with fear. My aunt heard the noises too, but she always shrugged them off. She didn't believe in ghosts or anything paranormal. I didn't want to bother her, so I stayed quiet most of the time. But sometimes, I couldn't hold it in. I would cry and scream, telling her I saw a black figure in the corner of the room. She never believed me. This happened almost every weekend. I became terrified of going to her house, but I had no choice because of my studies. Then came autumn break, a 10-day holiday. I went to my aunt's place again, but this time my uncle was home too. He worked in another state and only came back during longer breaks. That evening felt normal, even though that same uneasy feeling was still there. When night arrived, my aunt and uncle went to sleep in the master bedroom. Since I was too scared to sleep alone, I insisted on sleeping with them, and they agreed. I swear, that night was one of the worst I've ever experienced. I lay down on the opposite side of the bed, closer to the windows. The windows were covered with curtains, and behind them you could only see the staircase and nearby apartments. I eventually fell asleep, but around 1 a.m., I woke up to whispers coming from the direction of the curtains. I immediately panicked and started crying. I felt bad for disturbing my aunt and uncle, but I couldn't help it. I stayed in fear for what felt like 2 hours, waking them up multiple times. Eventually, I got tired and somehow fell asleep again. For a little while, everything felt okay, but then something happened that I will never forget. Around 3 or 4 a.m., I woke up again. This time, it was the whispers again. But I stayed quiet. I didn't want to wake my aunt and uncle. Then, I saw it, and I swear it wasn't my imagination. I saw an old man standing there. He was wearing a gold suit. Half of his face was completely skinless. The other half had an eye, a nose, and a disturbing smile. He was holding a knife in his hand. The moment I saw him, I sat up and started crying uncontrollably. My aunt and uncle woke up again, this time clearly frustrated because they hadn't slept at all. I felt bad for them, but I was terrified. The next morning, I insisted on going home, and my uncle drove me back. What's even more disturbing is what I found out years later. In 2023, I learned something I'll never forget. The face I saw that night, it looked exactly like my uncle's father, who had passed away many years ago. To this day, I don't understand why I saw him. I still visit my aunt sometimes. She still lives in the same apartment, but thankfully, it's not as bad as it used to be. My name is Tanny, and this happened when I was 17 years old. I live in a large gated apartment complex. Back then, I had a pretty simple routine. I owned a white Spitz dog and sometimes I would take him outside late at night so he could do his business. Since our complex always felt safe, I never thought much about it. One night, around midnight, I was on the phone with my friend, who I'll call Priya. She was also 17 and lived in the same complex. Since we were both awake, we decided to meet up and walk around for a little while. Our homes were located near the center of the complex. From my building, there was a long path that stretched straight ahead. At the end of it, the road turned right into a long, dimly lit area that ended in a dead end. The dead end was blocked off by a blue corrugated metal sheet, and behind it was a large empty lot. So Priya and I walked in that direction, just two teenage girls talking quietly while my dog trotted beside me, sniffing around like normal. Then I saw her. There was a woman standing near the blue metal sheet. She was wearing a dark green dress, and her hair was tied into a loose, uneven bun. But the thing that caught my attention immediately was her eyes. They were wide open. She wasn't blinking. She just stood there with her legs slightly apart, staring directly at us. In one hand, she held a small black plastic bag. At first, we thought maybe she was lost, or maybe she needed help, but my dog seemed to know better. He suddenly started whining. Then he began pulling hard on the leash, trying to drag me away from her. A few seconds later, the woman started speaking, but it wasn't English. It was some kind of rhythmic, guttural language I had never heard before. And while she spoke, she kept giggling softly to herself. Then she started moving her hands in these strange, exaggerated motions, almost like an actor performing on stage. That's when Priya and I realized this wasn't just some weird encounter. Something was seriously wrong. We turned around and started walking back as fast as we could. By then, my dog had completely panicked. He was growling and snapping behind us while pulling hard against the leash. Then we heard footsteps slapping against the pavement. She was following us, and she wasn't just walking. She was moving in this frantic, unnatural way, much faster than I expected someone dressed like that to move. Priya and I immediately started running. In the chaos, I lost my grip on my dog's leash. Thankfully, he knew the way home. He bolted toward my building gate, barking wildly, while Priya and I ran after him. At one point, I made the mistake of looking back. I wish I hadn't. The woman was sprinting after us, holding part of her dress up so she wouldn't trip. Her eyes were still locked onto us, and she was still muttering in that same strange language while laughing under her breath. Then she threw the black plastic bag at us. Luckily, we had already gotten far enough away. The bag slammed onto the asphalt behind us. We didn't stop running. We ran straight to the security booth. My dad was one of the people in charge of the complex, so the guards took us seriously immediately. One of them grabbed a large baton and headed toward the dead end to search the area, but the woman was gone. They checked the entire stretch near the blue metal sheet. Nothing. No woman, no footsteps, no sign that anyone had been there at all. But the worst part came the next day. Priya had seen the bag more clearly than I had. She told me what was inside it. Pieces of flesh and fur. She couldn't tell what kind of animal it came from. I'm 20 years old now, and Priya and I still live in that same complex. Neither of us go anywhere near that dead end after dark. Even now, we still don't know who that woman was, or what she was waiting for near those blue metal sheets. Hi, Wanzi. I wanted to share a personal story that happened to me a few weeks ago. For privacy reasons, I won't share any real names, so you can just call me Nicole. I have two siblings, an older brother and a younger sister. Let's call my sister Alex and my brother Gabriel. Both of my parents are workaholics and usually work at night. They only come home around 12 to 1 a.m., so my siblings and I are home alone every night. We don't mind, since we're used to it, and we even have a dog, a dachshund, named Trix. Our parents adopted her so my younger sister and I would have someone to play with and keep us company. For 3 days it had been raining heavily, and the power kept going out across our area, so we were dealing with constant blackouts. One night, it was raining heavily again. Our parents went to work, and Gabriel went to hang out with his friends. Just for clarification, my brother is much older than us. He's in college, while my sister and I are in junior high. So sometimes, it's just the two of us at home. That night, my sister and I were in our room with Trix, who was sleeping on our bed, while we watched videos on our phones. Then, the power went out again, which annoyed both of us. I thought about going to sleep, but decided to stay awake to keep my sister company. We used a flashlight for light in our room. While we were talking, I heard the front door open, since our room is right near it. That was weird. Gabriel always comes home late, and I knew I had locked the front door. My parents and brother always remind me to lock everything, and they usually knock or call my name so I can let them in. But this time, they didn't. I kept hearing footsteps moving around the house while my sister continued talking, completely unaware. Then, things started to feel wrong. Trix suddenly woke up, walked toward our bedroom door, started sniffing, and then began growling. That's when I started to panic. She only acts like that when she senses a stranger, maybe an intruder. My gut told me to act fast. I quietly locked our bedroom door, turned off the flashlight, and told my sister to be quiet. She didn't understand at first, so I quickly typed on my phone, "Someone is in the house. It's not Mom, Dad, or Gabriel." She went silent instantly. She picked up Trix and held her close so she wouldn't bark and alert whoever was inside that we were there. With the rain and the blackout, I hoped the intruder didn't realize anyone was home. We stayed completely still, just listening. Then suddenly, we heard utensils crash onto the floor in the kitchen. The noise was loud. I turned on my phone for a little light and looked at my sister. She was holding Trix tightly, terrified, while Trix stared at the door. I didn't know what to do. The power was out, so we couldn't call anyone, and it was pouring rain outside. We felt completely stuck and isolated. So we stayed quiet as best we could. Then, a loud bang hit our door. We froze, and then we heard a man's voice yell,
"Come out, bitch! I know you're in there!"
That's when Trix started barking aggressively. The man kept banging on our door harder and louder. I was panicking, but I knew I had to do something. I ran to my closet, grabbed 2 jackets, and gave one to Alex while I put the other one on. I told her to hold Trix, grabbed our phones, and made a decision. We were getting out through the window. Even though it was dark and pouring rain, I grabbed her hand and we climbed out. The moment we hit the ground, we ran. We ran as fast as we could to our neighbor's house and begged them to let us in. They immediately helped us. I explained everything while my sister started crying, still holding Trix, soaked from the rain. Our neighbors stayed with us and made sure we were safe. When the power came back on, they called the police and our parents right away. When our parents arrived, they were terrified. Gabriel was with them. Our mom ran to us, panicking, while our dad spoke to the officers. My sister and I explained everything to the police. Then, they searched our house, and they found something. All the utensils were on the floor, and one item was missing, a knife. Worse, our bedroom door was wide open. I felt sick when I heard that. Nothing valuable had been taken, just the knife. The police couldn't do much. There were no fingerprints, and we never saw the man's face, only heard his voice. It's been a few days now, and we're staying at our grandparents' house for safety. Maybe we'll go back home soon, but only after my parents are sure it's safe. Gabriel has stayed with us since then and hasn't gone out with his friends. We're okay now. Escaping through that window that night was the right decision. But if I hadn't made that choice, who knows what would have happened.